Up for so many days, you lose whatever momentum you have, which is a problem. And tomorrow's going to be Siddur, then we're going to be back Monday next. Good morning, Shimshon Agibir. I'm here for a change. I'm actually in school. Oh, Yisachar Tzvi.
Oh, you're really good.
Takes a while, don't worry. It takes just as much time as we can. I don't have a working timepiece, so if anybody will let me know when it's close to 9 o'clock, I'd appreciate it, okay? So let's go. I just saw another face. Who was just here? Shnei Zalman and Shimshon Agibir. Where'd they go? Okay, so let's go. Let's do the questions. Okay, 290 is such a funny question because there's so many correct answers to this question. But the one we talked about on Sunday is as follows: 219. How many levels of Torah are there? The answer in this case is 3. What are the 3? The carved, the written, and the oral. The lucha is the Sefer Torah and the Torah Shabbat Peh. Okay, like I said, there's in every. Are you coming in today? Take a page of this here. There are so many correct answers to this question, but for the purposes of this conversation, the 3 levels of Torah are the letters of the Luchas, Eises Hakika, the letters of the Sefer Torah, which is called Eises Aksiva, written letters, and the Torah Shabbat Peh, the oral Torah, which is all Baal Peh. Now, question 220. What are the mystical delineations of each of these 3? What are the mystical, I had to write those words just to feel good, to feel smart. What are the mystical delineations of each of these 3? The answer is, the Luchas are Kulei Ponim. They're front on both sides. The Sefer Torah is Ponim V'Achar, a front and a back. And Torah Shabbat Peh is Kulei Achar, is all back, all rear.
What is that?
The Luchas Habris is Kulei Ponim on both sides. You can read them. If you look at this side, you look at this side, even though it was Charos or Luchas, Mishnei Avreim through and through, on both sides was the front. I'm saying this obviously according to the Eifin that the Luchas were a foot by an amma by half an amma. In other words, they were not a cube; they were a square. The Sefer Torah is Ponim V'Ach. It's a pasuk in Zechariah, I think. Pon a front and a back, and the Torah Shabbat Peh is Kuliach is entirely back. What do those 3 things mean? What is Ponim and what is Acharayim? Pnimius HaTorah is godliness. It's called Oira Torah, the light of the Torah. And Achirayim of Torah is Seichel HaTorah. The back of the Torah is the intellect of the Torah. Now, you see, I guess the most realistic way to describe this is if we lived in Zman Bayis Rishon, which is close to 1,000 years. Until Shimon HaTzadik is exactly 1,000 years. So, Churban Bayis Rishon was 890 years after Yetzias Mitzrayim. Okay? The Rebbe once mentioned in the Sikha that all the important years were 8. We left Egypt 8. Beis Mikdash was built 8. Beis Mikdash was destroyed 8. Built a second time 8. The year 8. 2448. 2488.
Who was born?
In Samach Beis. 2. But the Rebbe Tafshin Memches, the Rebbe spoke, Tafshin Memches was exactly 3,300 years since Matan Torah. 3,300 years. And by the way, Tafshin Pei Aleph was 3333 exactly. I spoke about it at the time. 3 years ago we had 3,333 years since Matan Torah. Now we're holding 3,337 years since Matan Torah. This upcoming Shavuos. But 36 years since Matan Torah. If you lived in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, that the Ruach HaKodesh was real. An average Jew opened up and said, they learned from the Sefer Torah. They didn't learn from the Sefer Torah. They didn't have a Torah Shabbat Peh. You opened up a Sefer Torah, you saw godliness. Which means every time you read a word, you could see different things. You'll rub your hands on the table when you finish. Yeah? Every time you learned the Torah, you saw different things. The dogma that I gave you was from the 3 times Kaddish, 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 and Uvalatziyin. The Yeruza Ben Azil translates each Kaddish in a different way based on the fact that there's a ponim to the Acharayim. So the face of Torah is godliness. The back of Torah is understanding. In the Luchas, both sides are front. Meaning to say, the Luchas are a Madreg of Ruach HaKodesh, that even the back of the Ruach HaKodesh is also Ruach HaKodesh. The Sefer Teda, the Pnimis of Teda is Ruach HaKodesh, but the back of the Sefer Teda is understanding, is Seichel. And the Teda Shema Peh is all Seichel. Now if you understand Jewish history, if you know Jewish history, which is 3,336 years old, you know that for approximately the first 1,000 years, the preeminent feature of Yiddishkeit and of Torah was Nevuah Ruach HaKodesh, was spirituality. It means people were very deeply in touch with godliness, and when they opened up a Sefer Torah, of course they understood what the words mean. But beyond understanding what the words mean, they saw oil, they saw light. Like the Chazal say, that in our Sefer Torah it says that Hashem made for Adam and Chava a shirt. V'yasa l'kim la'adam u'le'ishtei. Kosnois oyer, v'yalbisha, made them on kosnois, a shirt. And an oyer is spelled with an ayin, which means leather, animal skins. So the Chazal say, B'teirasei shal Rab Meir, ha'yakosov kosnois eir b'yaluf. In the Meir Sefer Torah was written a tunic of light, a shirt of oyer, like oita oyer kasalma. Light can be a garment also. And the Meir Sefer Torah was kosher for the Meir, because he was the Madreg of Oid, was Madreg of Ruach HaKodesh. So the Luchas are all Ruach HaKodesh, the Sefer Torah has the Ruach HaKodesh half and a Seichel half, and Tej Bapeh is all Seichel. So the story of Jewish history is that the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah saw what was coming. The Anshe Knesset HaGedolah included big Nevi'im, prophets, including Mordechai himself. Mordechai was a member of the Knesset HaGedolah, and Ezra Sefer, and Shimon HaTzadik, and Nehemiah, and all these great men, the 120 people, Chazal said, Rambam brings it. They realized that the Ruach HaKodesh was going away, that the Divine Spirit was going to leave. And when we're talking about the Divine Spirit, you have to mention Gedalia. I said this to you so many times. I thought about this many, many years ago, and then I've convinced myself that it's true, and now I just say it as a matter of fact. If you can ask me what's my source, I'm going to have to scratch my head. We do not fast because Gedalia was murdered. We fast when Gedalia was murdered. The last Jews left Eretz Yisrael. There was no longer anything in Eretz Yisrael. Because there's a question. Which brings which? Does Ruach HaKodesh bring the Jews, or does Jews bring the Ruach HaKodesh? Does Shechina rest where Yidden are, or where Yidden are, Shechina rests? The Shechina rest where Yidden are, or where the Shechina is, Yidden come? And the correct answer is the Yidden bring the Shechina. The Beis HaMikdash was Beisi Beis Fili Yikon L'chol Ha'amim Tel Ta'opiyas Tel Shechol Ha'opiyas Peinim L'sham. The reason that the Beis HaMikdash was Ruach HaKodesh because Yidden came there. And it was this way in the Beis HaMikdash in a very concentrated way, in Yerushalayim in a less concentrated way, and in all of Eretz Yisrael in an even less concentrated way. As long as there were Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, the divine spirit, which was existent in the first Beis HaMikdash, and in Yerushalayim, and in Eretz Yisrael at that time remained. And when the Yidden left, the Ruach HaKodesh flooded away, went away. And when they came back for the second Beis HaMikdash to be built, it didn't come back.
So why does it say in the Gemara only after?
It went out slowly. It went out slowly. The Ner of it was covered. The Yeshua Tzaddik passed away 40 years into Bayesheni. But the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah saw that it was a matter of time.
At the end of one of the Gemaras, two seconds, it says when this guy passed away.
You're talking about Madregas. I'm talking about a Madrega which affects the whole of Klal Yisrael. And by the way, this is a Gemara Masechta Seitan. But okay, we have to talk about this. You're asking a question that really deserves some examination. Your question deserves an answer. I'm deflecting your question, but let's leave it alone. The Anshe Knesset HaGedolah in many ways, Harbe Mem Hayu Nevi'im, the Rambam writes. But they knew Nevuah was ending. They knew Vateichal, Vatisba, Vateiser, Ad Yemei Rebbe. So Vateichal, Vatisba, Vateiser, the first Beis HaMikdash was Ad Yemei Shimon HaTzadik. They knew whatever spirit was existed as Man Beis Yishim was not coming back. Because it went, and until Mashiach comes, they're not getting it back. So the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah did something very, very, very radical. What they did was, they recentered Yiddishkeit. Until the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, with their go'onim as Man Beis Yishim, of course. Were there Talmidei Chacham Man Beis Yishin? Of course. Were there people who understood Torah, like Rashi and like Rambam and like Rabbeinu Tam and like the Go'onim and like the Amirayim and like the Tanoim? They were in a higher madrig of understanding Torah. But they didn't consider that the big deal. The big deal was Nevuah, Ruch, spirituality. In other words, everybody understood the Torah their own way. They were very smart. They learned Torah, they understood it.
Yeah, but you have to say some of these guys had Ruach HaKodesh.
They all had Ruach HaKodesh. And their understanding of Torah came from the Ruach HaKodesh. And this is why they were so good at it. You understand? The Anshe Knesset HaGedolah came along and made huge changes. Huge changes. But the biggest change they made, if I may use these oases, was to make Yidden from Chassidim into Misnagdim. That sounds very bold, but that's really the simplest way to understand it. They went away from the focus of Yiddishkeit being on Ruchnius, on the Lakus, to the focus of Yiddishkeit being on learning and interpreting the Sheba'al Peh.
And Karaite became
And who fought with them like a lion? The spiritualists. Who were the spiritualists? In other words, you don't want to call them the Chassidim because they were wrong.
Karaite.
The Tzdukim, way before the Kraim, the Tzdukim and the Baitusim, Zman Ba'ishayin, the Kraim and the Zman of the Goinim. It's the same philosophies. They said we want to hold on to spirituality.
The only spirituality.
Well, no, we want to be the Ikir. The Halach is there. Halach is important, but the Ikir is Ruchnius. And in Zman Ba'ishayin, which is hundreds of years, there was this ongoing battle between Tzdukim and the Prushim about where the center of Yiddishkeit was. And the ultimate expression of this is which house is more important? The house of God or the house of Torah? Now, the Lishkas HaGodes was in the Beis HaMikdash. The Sanhedrin were in the Beis HaMikdash, Lishkas HaGodes, until 40 years before the Churban. Then they went into Golos. Asara, Golos, Golos, Sanhedrin, until Sanhedrin was Nizbak. Right? But in the Beis HaMikdash proper, what was the most important place? The Kedesh HaKadoshim or the Mizbeach or the Lishkas HaGodes, which was on the northern side of the Azara. So the Tzdukim are screaming the most important thing is spirituality and holiness, and the Perushim, which is us, were screaming the most important is Gemara, love this. Now, while we're talking, Midei Dabri, I'll throw in as just a thought, as a Maimer Amuzge, that this is the time of the Misnagdim. When Kabbalah came along and Chassidus came along, all of a sudden we want to go back to spirituality, to make an Ikar spirituality. And they're screaming, excuse me, we gave that up. What's the answer to that, Taina?
Time.
Huh?
Time.
Okay, that's the basic answer. Because Tayameh Chaim Zachu. Tayameh Chaim Zachu, that says in Allah, and it's based on a Zoya, that before Shabbos you have to go back and taste the foods of Shabbos. And Shabbos means Yimei Mashiach. And that's what the revelation of Seitas HaTorah, the Zoyar, and then the great Mekubalim, and then Chassidus, it's a Gili of Pnimius HaTorah as a Achona for Ka'asi Man, Da Malka Mashiach, with the Kamei Mashiach, the Kenyan, when the Ikar Stakar going to be Pnimius HaTorah. Du verstehst? So the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah went away from what we would call the face of the Torah, and they focused instead on the rear of the Torah. Why? Because they saw that the Pnimius HaTorah was waning. The ability to have Ruach HaKodesh is going away. So they preempted. You see, you have to understand, why were the Tzdukim against them? Shimshon, for the reason you gave. There still was Ruach HaKodesh. There still was Nevuah to a limited degree. So why are you screaming, give it up? The most important thing is a Blat Gemara. Study the Psukim and dissect the Tanakh and figure out from the Chumash and from the Chazal, from the Mikra, from the Ksuvim, from the Divrei Kabbalah, Halach and Minig, the Reisis and the Rabbanans and so on and so forth. There's still Ruach HaKodesh. And what was the answer? It's going away, it's not coming back. And if we're not going to make a very strong Torah Sheba'al Peh, if we're not going to make a very, very strong Sanhedrin, but Gonish Bleiben, nothing is going to stay from the Jewish people. And that's why we survived. Because of that reformation. Because Anshe Knesset HaGedolah made it into a rock. The Inyan Torah Sheba'al Peh, Alumnus. You understand? Yeah. So now let's get to our mind. Next question, please. 220. Using the Shemona Esrei of Shabbos morning as a model. Please show me all of these three. This is my own personal stuff. I daven every Shabbos. Right? And as I mentioned to you in the class on Sunday, I'm sorry I missed Monday and Tuesday. Believe me, I missed being here. I hate being sick. I partially hate being sick. I do. I
wouldn't assume you liked being sick.
I have no idea how much I slept. It's 24 hours, 48 hours. My goof gedacht up. I slept. It's not normal for me to sleep so much. Not I was in bed. It's not normal.
No Sudoku?
2 days ago, plenty of Sudoku, I literally had no voice. I got up at 6 o'clock on Monday morning, and my wife says, "Get back into bed." An argument. Okay, I was sick.
You ever like chicken soup, Rabbi?
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Whatever. Okay. Listen, I'm talking too much to the whole world this here. Well, my illnesses. I love my name, but it was with Sunday's class was good. If it would have been right away Monday, there would be a certain flow, which unfortunately we lost. So I told us to you that Yom Tif, the Kiddush of Yom Tif is always the same. I'm talking about the Kiddush and davening, not the Kiddush with a cup of wine. The Kiddush and davening. The Nusach starts with the words Atav Chatonu. Shachris, Mincha Ma'ariv, even Musaf, and Yom Tif starts Atav Chatonu and Vatitan Lanu, and it finishes Mekadesh Yisrael Vazman and Mekadesh Shabbos V'Yisrael Vazman, like we learned in Rambam, in Ilchas Shabbos and also in Ilchas Tefillah. But Shabbos, every tefillah has its own kiddush. Friday night is Ata Kiddashta, Yom Hashvi. Every Friday night when I say these words, I think about it. You made holy the seventh day. Tachlis, Ata Kiddashta, Yom Hashvi. Oh, I'm bad. Friday night, no. The Shmecha. Tachlis, Matish Mayim Voretz. Tachlis Matish Mayim Voretz. Tachlis. The point of the whole creation is Shabbos. Tachlis Matish Mayim Voretz, right? If you meet a boy in Mitzrayim and says the Tachlis, the whole Yiddishkeit just to put on film, and you open up a city and look, it says Tachlis Shabbos, says, that's what Shabbos says. Sunday says Tachlis Matish Mayim Voretz is Sunday, but in Siddur it says Tachlis Matish Mayim Voretz, yeah? So that's Friday night. Shabbos morning is Yismach Moshe B'Nas Chalk. Then Musaf is a separate thing, really, but it begins with the words Tikam Shabbos. And Mincha is Ata'echa. So the Shachris Kiddush has 3 paragraphs, 3 unique paragraphs, right? We in all 3 tefillos of Shmoneh Esrei we say Elokeinu Elokeinu Aviseinu, and except for Mincha we say Yismachu Malchus Hashem Mishal V'Kedei Einei. By Shabbos to Mincha Yismachu disappears, because Shabbos to Mincha there's only Simcha, there's only Einei, there's no Simcha at all. But okay, that's a discussion for another time. But Shabbos morning's Kiddush, you have the 2 other paragraphs, Yismachu Elokeinu Aviseinu, which have in the other tefillos as well, but you have 3 unique paragraphs. Yismach Moshe, then we say V'Shamru, and then we say V'Lenesate Elokeinu Mishal Kinu Ge'elas. 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph describes how the Shabbos is in the Luchas. The second paragraph describes how Shabbos is in Chumash. And the third paragraph describes that Goyim don't have Shabbos. Why don't Goyim have Shabbos? Anybody? Why don't, They tried to have a Torah. Everybody has the Bible. Who doesn't have the Bible? Everybody has the Bible. Why don't Goyim have Shabbos? Because Torah Shabbat wasn't written down.
That's why they don't have it.
That's why they can't practice it.
Well, some of them do the sabbaticals.
I know, but they do it on the wrong day, and they do it in the wrong way. They don't have Shabbos. Why? Because Torah, if you learn the Torah, Shabbos is mentioned almost more than any other thing. How many times they intend to keep Shabbos? Again, it says in Sfarim, either 32 or 49, but a lot. If you learn every single word of every single pasuk about Shabbos, you don't have a clue how to keep it. Not a clue. And that's the pshat. It's Torah Sheba'al Peh. The holiness of Shabbos in the Sefer Torah, but of course, for that they have a chlal nochosh. How do you understand the holiness of Shabbos? Okay? And the actionable side of Shabbos is Baal Peh. As every Shabbos we point this out. We have 630 mitzvahs. And in Bepashtas, of those 630 mitzvahs, 10 of them are written in the Luchas. 613 are written in the Sefer Torah. Some are written very clearly and some are written very, very, very unclearly. And they're all explained in Torah Shabbat Peh. So some mitzvahs you do on 3 levels. Some mitzvahs you do on 2 levels. And some mitzvahs you more or less do on 1 level. If it's written in the Sefer Dibros, and repeated in the Sefer Torah, and explained Torah Shabbat Peh, that's like Shabbos. 3 madregas. Chakika, Ksiva, and Al Peh. All Ruach HaKodesh and Seichel, and all Seichel. So the Torah has these 3 dimensions. They're qualitative dimensions. You follow? Okay, next question, please. 220 to examine the Chumash. How do you see this issue specifically when it comes to Shabbos? I just told you that in the Torah, Chumash, Shabbos repeated 150, a bunch of times. And you don't know how to keep it. Because the Eivish, my grandfather used to say this to me, here's from his Rosh Yeshiva, and it's Oizgehal. Api Niglet Oizgehal, Api Pshat Oizgehal. The Eivish wrote everything in a riddled way. First of all, because the Torah has many interpretations. And second of all, because in the end, the whole world has the Bible. But not Torah Shabbat Peh. The Shem Elokeinu Goyim says Goyim don't have Shabbos. And the same is true with all other mitzvahs. Okay, question 223. How does all of this relate to the thousands of Maimorim available to us and in print today?
We do not sell them today.
How does all of this relate to the 1,000 Maimorim available to us? It should be in print today. The answer to that question is Chassidus, like Kabbalah, is part of Pnimis HaTorah. Chassidus, like Kabbalah, is part of Pnimis HaTorah. And as I explained to you in class on Sunday, very often, a Maimer Chassidus will ask the very same questions that the Gemara asks, and that the Rishonim ask, and that the Mefarshim ask, but give different answers. For a couple of years, I had a Parsha class, which was a very scholarly Parsha, and good students, a real yeshiva bacharim for Talmidim, and we would take a pasuk in Chumash, and we would start with the Chazal, and then we do Rashi, and then we do the Even Ezra, and the Ramban, and so on, whatever it was from the Rishonim. Then we do some of the Achrayim, the Rechaim and the Kli Yakar are really very unusual amongst the Achrayim and Chumash, and then we would do Chassidus, and sometimes do Kabbalah. When you learn the Abarbanel and the Al-Sheikh, we used to do Achrayim, early Achrayim. When you learn one pasuk in Chumash and research the different Mefarshim, you begin to see what the Maimed is saying. Because the Maimed is a culmination, it's a graduation. To say it in Latin, it's a coup de grace. It's the end of a parsha, of a pasuk. The pasuk has so many different interpretations, so many different levels. Chassidus, it doesn't really tie it all together. Chassidus makes the mikra perfect. One of the things that Chassidus does, it makes the words of the pasuk exact. Not approximate, not hinting, not an allusion, not an interpretation, not an inference, straight up. The psukim of the parsha are directly understandable when you learn the parsha in Chumash, in Chassidus. Why? Because Chassidus is shlish b'mikra, Chassidus is pnimis HaTorah. Chassidus is revealing us the godly dimension of the Torah. And there's so many great examples for this in Maimonides. The truth is every Maimed is doing this. But you have to really work hard on a Maimed to flush out how the Chassidus of the Maimed is like a pnimis HaTorah. So you have to first learn the Gemaras in the Midrash. Then you have to learn the Rishonim. Then you have to learn the Eli Achrein. Then you have to learn the Chaykim. And then when you learn Chassidus, you only then begin to know what a Maimed is saying. People do not appreciate what a Maimed is saying is because they didn't do the research. When you learn a Maimed, so a Maimed brings a pasuk, asks questions, and gives answers. They're shade, very nice. If you will look about how that pasuk is studied by all the Svarim until Chassidus, you would see the Chiddush of Chassidus. And what is Chassidus saying to you when you look at a pasuk and you feel that the pasuk is written funny? The pasuk should be written more clearly, more words, fewer words, a different order, whatever the case is. When you get to the Chassidus, you understand why the pasuk is written the way it's written, because on the Pnimis HaTorah level, it's exactly what it means. And the Pshat and the lower levels, the Nigle and the Remez and so on and so forth, are dealing with the same pasuk, But because it's a lower level of Torah, not Pnimius HaTorah, it's not so clear. Verstehst? Right, question 224. How will this play to our mind? Machzah shekel. There is halachic machzah shekel, there's biblical machzah shekel. Biblical machzah shekel tells a story that happened one time. Halachic machzah shekel happens every year. The two things are overlapped in the Pasha Chumash. And it's kind of weird that the Pasha Chumash, which happened only one time, is 5 or 6 psukim, and the aspect of those 5 or 6 psukim which carries over to halacha is a few words only. Why would Torah Shebiksav waste 5 or 6 psukim telling us to count Yidden, which was done only one time, when the way the Machzah Shekel would be given all 80 years, where number one, it was not given for a count. Number two, didn't have to be given all by men over 20. Number three, it wasn't used for that don, it was used for the karbanos. Right? And number four, it's lav davka that you could call the chaper lav shizechem. So why would the Pasha of Machzah HaShekel talk about an event of Machzah HaShekel, which happened only one time, when halachically it happens every year? You know what the correct answer is? Because the Pasha of Machzah HaShekel is the neshama behind the Maitzah of Machzah HaShekel every year. In other words, the Pasha of Machzah HaShekel is not describing what happened one time. And all the other times it's whatever it is, Ma'isa of a Simen and Sinas Keich, Labonim, Teidim, No. The Chumash of Machzah HaShekel is the face of the halachas of Machzah HaShekel. How so? Simple. Machzah HaShekel is about karbonis. And to bring a carbon, a Yid has to give himself. And for Yid to bring a carbon, give himself, he needs to have Moshe Rabbeinu's help. So the Torah is giving us the face of the halach of Machzah HaShekel, which is the rear. Do you understand what I'm saying? Who has the time?
8:50.
Okay. You listening or not? Do we have to lock the door, please? Okay, look inside. Let's read. Pedic base. Let's learn it. Let's learn it inside. Look inside, all of it. Okay, the Inyan who the teretz is. The teretz to the kasha is, the way I'm phrasing it, there's many kashas. But the nekud of all of the kashas is, why does the Torah tell us, how many psukim is Parshas Machzah Shekel? Huh? How many psukim is Parshas Machzah Shekel?
Let's go with
How many?
6.
I'm going to go with 6 also, but I'll count.
You said 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you say 5 in French? Cinco and...
In French or
French, you
Spanish?
say Spanish.
Oh, my bad.
What's cinco is French. It's Spanish.
Cinq and six.
1, 2, 3, that's Spanish. 4 is 4. 5 is?
Cinco.
5 and 6 is?
Says.
6. So it's 6 psukim.
He did say.
Of these 6 psukim, he also said
Spanish, no,
6.
but he was rigid saying that
Yeah.
in French.
Of these 6 psukim, you know what's the Negei Lamaisa?
2, 1, 0.
Ha'oshel yarbe v'adal lo yamet mimachzah shekel losses esrim Hashem. I'd love to see which psukim the Rambam brings. Machzah shekel, one to yak mitzvahs. Which of these psukim he brings? The rest of it is about counting Yidden.
I think we do have the 613 mitzvahs in the other room.
Of course we do, but it's okay. So the shaila of the Maimer is, why would you have 6 psukim when so few of them are historic, are Negei Lamaisa? This happened once. Shem told Moshe Rabbeinu to count Yidden as a kapara for Chet Egel, so he only counted the men, and it was used for the Adonim and all the other things. So what the answer is, because this parsha is the pnimius, it's the pnimius of what we're doing. So it's not a one-time event. It's the neshama of Machzah Shekel. You and I keep it. Let's read the Maimed inside, please. Who needs a copy of the Maimed? Huh? If you need a copy, come and get. If you need a copy, come and get. If you need a copy, come and get. Who needs? Everybody has? So this is the 3rd time I'm reading this pedic, but now we're going to learn it. Inyan who the Torah says follows the
Bringing
hine.
the light to it.
Look inside. Inyan the Machzah Shekel. The idea of Machzah Shekel is Bechdei Lahaker, is Akabanis, they read the Kabbanis. Now let's throw something in right away. The first Machzah Shekel was not for Kabbanis. The first Machzah Shekel was for making the Beis HaMikdash, the Adon. So I already mentioned to you in the previous class that I have a recollection, which I should really confirm, that in one of the 50 Basi Laganis, remember every Basi Lagani started from the beginning, Basi Lagani Echesi Kala. So there are so many discussions on the first page. The Rebbe says that in the Medrash there's two psukim for the idea of Dira B'Tachtayim. One pasuk is V'asul L'Mikdash V'Shachanti B'Seichem, that's very famous. And the other pasuk is Tzadikim Yishu Ares V'Yishkenu La'ad Aleha. And if I'm not incorrect, the Rebbe says that it says in the Medrash that there's two processes of Dira B'Tachtayim. Number one, building the house, and number two, bringing the karbonos in the house once it's built. So building the house was the pasuk tzadikim yishu aretz, because yishkiru la'ad aleho, and bringing karbonos in that Beis HaMikdash. If it's an asli mikdash, if I'm not mistaken, that's the way it goes. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember. So the first year they took these machzah shekel for the adanim, because that was tzadikim gipshute, building the Beis HaMikdash. And after that, the same machzah shekel went for karbonos. So there's a pnimius and a chitzenius right here. The pnimius of karbonos is making the Eibishter a home. Chaim, let him in. The pnimius of karbonos is making the Eibishter a home. The chitzonius of it is, once you build a house, you have to bring karbonos every year. Can't just do it one time. It needs to be a constant avodah. Oh, the machan shechayonu. Okay, so let's go. Let's read it again. Dehine. There was a tkufa that you were a regular.
Me?
It's so good to have you. Dehine. Inyan machtes hashekel, who the concept machtes hashekel is, lahakot b'dei karbonos, in the already been built Beis HaMikdash. You listening? Uklol, the idea is, ba'avoidahu, shaydei zeh, that through this fact, shahoyu makrivim eis magabi hamizbeach, after the Beis HaMikdash was built, which happens once. You bring karbonos in the Beis HaMikdash every single day of every single year, as long as there's a Beis HaMikdash. And when you're bringing a carbon, there's two parts. That there's a mitzvah l'havim in a hedyet. There's a mitzvah of bringing a fire from the people. The special mitzvah every day to make fire in the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Rebbe, but then you want lihikolul be'eshel amayla, the carbon that we bring. The fire that we bring should be included in a fire that comes from the Eibishter, which is called in the Zohar, Bechines, Aryeh, the Ochel, Korbanin. So Rashi says, Chazal say, Revutza Kari, that on the Mizbeach, there was the likeness of a lion of fire, which was permanently crowned on the Mizbeach. That fire came down from heaven, B'mei Shloimeh, it was there the whole time, and it ate up the karbonos. And it says in Sfarim, it says in Chazal, that when Eibishter was angry with Yidden, that fire turned into the likeness of a dog, of a kelef. But in good times, the likeness of a lion that sat on the Mizbeach and ate up the karbonos. So we brought our own fire. It's a special mitzvah. Eish HaMizbeach took a bay, you have to every day bring eish. But on top of our eish, there was an eish shel amayla, which ate up our karbonos. What does that mean in Avodah? Hine mach mazeh. Because of this, there's two fires. The fire number one is the fire of godliness. It comes from heaven. And the fire number two is the fire of the animal soul, which we're burning up. Says the Rebbe, mach mazeh, because of this. Gam nefesh habahamis, the animal soul, shebekol echad bechad misol, of every single Jew, hoye nismayet, was made less, and really sacrificed. And number two, v'nichlal b'kedusha, it's included in holiness, ad until shekol echad v'echad, each person, hoye mekashe, daite u'benose, would tie his knowledge and his understanding, l'gedulas Hashem, to the greatness of the Eibishter, li'bat loving a battle to the Eibishter. When you bring a korban, so it says in Sfarim, it says in Chassidus, Omer Razal, Adam ki yakrev mikem korban lavaya. When you bring a korban, you're sacrificing yourself. So the Rebbe says the sacrifice of self has two parts. The animal soul is sacrificed so that the human being, which is hidden by the animal, could emerge, and the animal could be lifted up. Right? That word korban means two things. To sacrifice, which means to break down and destroy, and to bring close. So Biklolos, it means the animal wants to be sacrificed. Animal wants to be destroyed. The animal's a Meshuggah. He's an extremist. He's a polar being. But the animal soul covers over the divine soul. When you sacrifice the animal soul, the human soul, the divine soul could come close. But of course, the sacrifice of the animal soul is not just destroying him. The sacrifice of the animal soul is changing him, that he should go up, he should be a mensch. The tachlis of davening, I'm preparing classes of davening this morning, and I'm feeling very, very, very inadequate. But the tachlis of davening is that the animal soul should love God. Not that the animal soul should be put to sleep. When you daven, you want your animal soul to get excited by the Eibishter. How can you get your animal soul excited by the Eibishter as an animal? You make him realize, or her realize, or it realize, that it needs the Eibishter too. The Eibishter is important to the animals. So you're sacrificing, including the animal soul and avodah. That's what Karbanos were about. The sacrifice of an animal was the animal within a person. But the sacrifice was, he doesn't call it destruction, he calls it miyut. The animal soul is being made less of an animal and being redirected towards Avodas Hashem. In Chassidus, you have in 100 Maimonim the expression, V'rav tfu es b'keach shed. Animals are stronger than people pound for pound. But they're dumber than people. I told this to you many times. Animals, what they're good at, they're far better than people. There's only one way in which people are better than animals. And that is the ability to do a little bit of everything. We're not measured by one or two traits in an extreme way, whatever those traits are. Speed, strength, aggression, gentleness. We have a little bit of every characteristic. It's called Tefedes. It's called Iskalos. It's called in the image of God. The power of the human being is that he has a little bit of everything woven together into a unity. The animal strength is that he's not good at everything, but what he's good at, he's good to an extreme. So you want to harness that mila of the v'rav towards b'keach shei. The animal's mila, whatever it is, it's stronger than the God that's supposed to be directed towards Avodas Hashem. So the sacrificing of the animals, bringing the animal close, and it's represented by the fire that we put on the mizbeach. And then the mensch emerges. The human being within us, the mind, the heart, the senses, the sophisticated, gentle, quiet, deep soul comes out. And the mensch that emerges after the animal has been sacrificed is represented by the fire that came from heaven. So the machzas hashekel at the first year were used to build the Beis HaMikdash. In every subsequent year are used to bring karbanos on the Beis HaMikdash. So machzas shekel was used for sacrifices. So halachically, nigle, you gave 50 cents. And Mois to the Tziba Yafa Yafa, you gave you 50 cents to the community. And like the Rebbe says in the Sikhas, which I mentioned the other day, that on the one hand, it doesn't belong to any individual, it belongs to the entire community as a community. But on the other hand, somehow in a weird way, even though you gave it away to the community, it's no longer private. Now it's public. In a weird way, there's still an aspect where each individual has his piece. There's a duality to it. You gave it away to the community, and now it's not yours, it's not his, it's not his. It's not even all of ours. It's this entity called tzibur, a singularity called the tzibur. And we bring a karban tzibur, a sacrifice as a community. And this sacrifice as a community is a sacrifice of our animal soul, which is going to be lifted up, so he should become a shtickle mensch, by being connected to the fire of the heavens. This is what machzas shekel is for. So halachically, we know what it's about. You're 50 cents and you're part in all the karbanos. Spiritually, what is it about? Serving the Eibishter both with your animal soul and your godly soul. So we read on. Now we're done through davening, which is connected to karbanos, taking with the karbanos. So this is the beginning. If you ask the question,
What's karbanos then?
Tefillah, davening. Tefillah is b'makom. What it says? Tefillah b'makom karbanos tiknu. We daven instead of karbanos. So now, 6 psukim, of which you need really one today to describe machzas shekel. Why? Because machzas shekel is the pnimius. The chitein of machzas shekel is bringing physical karbanos, and the pnimius of machzas shekel is sacrificing our animal and making him into a shtickle mensch. And that's why it's written in 6 psukim. In the Torah Shebeksav, of course they're talking about the halacha. But in the Torah Shebeksav, they're talking about the halacha also. What is the Torah Shebeksav talking about directly? Directly, it's talking about pnimius. You understand? Teda has a pnimius and a chitzonius. I told you before that has 3 levels. Chatika, ponim, ochet. The Sefer Teda is ponim. From the ponim comes an ochet. When the Chazal learn these 6 psukim, they need only one of them to tell us that you have to give a half a shekel. Whether you're rich, you can't give more. When you're poor, you can't give less. You have to give it all in one increment, in one coin. Like the halachas are in the Cheshkolim. That we learn in Rambam soon in Mitzvah. Today we're learning Shabbos. They were learning whatever it is, Shvisa Sasa. But then we're going to be learning soon enough. We're going to be getting to Shkolim. And soon enough, we're going to finish Shkolim. It takes less than 2 days. It's 5 parakim. So there's halachas of Shkolim. And they come from these psukim. But you don't need 6 psukim with those halachas, you need 1 pasuk, or a pasuk and a half. So why are there 6 psukim for Machzah Shekel if you only need a pasuk and a half? And the answer is because the Sefer Teda has a ponim. And the ponim is how these karbanas are the sacrificing of the animal soul and including them with the divine soul. But one more kvetch. And this I'm going to leave for tomorrow. Which comes from Meisha Rabbeinu. If you want to understand why Machzah Shekel is 6 psukim, you have to study Pnimius HaTeira.